Hello, this is Digital Accessibility, the people behind the progress. I'm Joe Walensky, the creator and host of this series. And as an accessibility professional myself, I find it very interesting as to how others have found their way into this profession. So let's meet one of those people right now and hear about their journey. All right, welcome to another episode where I have the opportunity to speak with another accessibility practitioner. And today I am pleased to be speaking with Lars Holm Sørensen. Hello, Lars. How are you today?
Hello, and thanks. I'm good, and thank you for inviting me in here. I'm excited about being here.
Well, most often with this program, I've been at my home office on Vashon Island, but today I'm at Blink's headquarters office in downtown Seattle. Where are you talking to us from?
I'm in my home office, and that is in Copenhagen, Denmark.
All right. Well, it's great to have another international person involved in this program, and I've been to Copenhagen several times and enjoyed my time there very much.
Okay, interesting.
Well, one of the first things that I always find useful is if you could tell us a little bit about the work that you're currently involved in.
Yeah, sure. So I'm working in a company called Monsido, powered by Civic Plus, and we are originally Monsido was a Danish company, but now acquired by a US-based company. But the Danish part of the company, so to say, the product that we are creating, that is an accessibility testing tool. So I'm basically working with improving this accessibility scanner tool. So it's mainly about automated accessibility testing, but also obviously there are a lot of things that we can test by machines that needs a manual review. So it's also about how can we best in a platform like the one we do, how can we best help our customers to both get the machine test, so to say, but also help them to do the manual reviews they need to do. So I would say that's one part of my job, to basically help to improve our own product. But I'm also doing a lot of awareness work, I would say, and that's both internally and externally. So by internally, that means that now we are an organization of more than 1,000 people, and we also in our company need to build up and maintain accessibility awareness. I'm doing a lot around that. I started in Monsido about 7-8 months ago, and one of the very first things I started doing there was to start creating an accessibility champion network to make sure that we could anchor awareness and knowledge in all the teams across our own organization. And also when we are doing external events with our customers and other people, I usually go in there for doing some awareness and knowledge work as well.
Well, it could be helpful if you could explain a little bit more about your product, the types of things that it does, who or what types of organizations might be interested in acquiring it.
Yeah, sure. So it's you could say it's a compliance platform we are doing. It's not only about accessibility, though accessibility is a very big part of it now. It also has other things, quality assurance, check for broken links, check for wrong spelling, etc., etc. But I'm working with our accessibility module. So it's basically a tool used by website owners. It could be a municipality or a company having a website, and they want to make sure that they are complying to basically the WCAG standards, but hopefully also doing even better than that. But we are scanning for people's websites, finding accessibility errors and reporting on that, and trying to help them to fix these things and guide them on how to fix these things.
All right, great. Well, that's helpful to learn more about that. One of the things that we enjoy doing with this program is finding out how people found their way to accessibility. It's often very different for different people, but we want to encourage as many people as possible to get involved. So how did it start for you that you first became familiar with accessibility and decided to make it part of your regular work life?
Yeah, sure. I happen to be a blind person myself, so accessibility has kind of always been relevant to me in one or the other way. I could see more from the beginning of my life. It was people only found out when I was 6-7 years old that I had some problems with my eyes. At that time, I could see much more. So my vision or eyesight gradually vanished over time. So today I can see about 1 or 2% probably of what most people can see. So that means I can see a little bit of light and darkness and some shapes in the right lighting condition. And I'm a screen reader user myself today. So accessibility was always relevant to me in the way that I pretty much of my life encountered accessibility issues or barriers in not only in digital systems, but right from early on in my life, it was difficult to get, for example, access to knowledge. At that time, audiobooks was not mainstream. It was something special on audio cassettes, and there were very limited number of books I could go to my library, for example, to pick up at that time that was available to me. I got into working with accessibility professionally around 2011. I took a degree in computer science that must have been 2004, around that time. And I realized at that time, I just had an idea that I had the idea that I would probably want to work in software development, web development, something in that area. But I also found it was, as I was not completely blind at that time, I could see more than today, but I was using magnification, and I had started using screen readers also at that time. But already at that time, I found it to be very difficult to work with many of these systems that were basically needed to work as a software developer. For example, many of the development tools were not very accessible at that time. Though it is possible to work as a programmer just text-based, but I was not really into that, and I felt at that time I would kind of always be a little bit behind in the job market if I were to compete with programmers, developers who could use all sorts of smart tools that weren't accessible to me at that time. So I couldn't really figure out what to do. And for some years, I just had different small jobs. I worked a couple of years with some database administration. I did a bit of freelance game development, stuff like that. And then around 2011, I decided that I needed to find a more stable way of living, so to say. But still, I couldn't really. I was insecure. I can see that now. I'm not sure I was that aware about it at that time, but I was really insecure at that time on how could I fit into a normal workplace still with all these systems not being very accessible. So, and it was difficult for me to at that time to see how could I work my way around all these inaccessible systems that I would have to work with. So I basically decided that I would just create my own job, and I started my own consultancy at that time. And then the idea was, if I'm in control of this, I can decide which tasks I'm doing and what I can ask others to do. So that was a plan, and I did that for pretty much until last year. I've been running my own consultancy up until now.
Well, you've already covered a lot of things, and I'd like to just go back a little bit. And first of all, thank you for sharing your personal challenges to be able to find your way with the assistive technology. It sounds like in your case, you did have some assistive technology support early on to help you, and it also sounds like you had an interest in technology. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. All the way through school, I used different types of assistive technology. So in the beginning, it was mainly Zoom magnification, and then over time, I needed more and more speech, like screen reader software. And today, I only depend on my screen reader. I cannot see anything going on the screen, but all through school education, I did use different assistive technologies, and then as I said, I mentioned I took this degree in computer science, which was also difficult because a lot of things weren't that accessible, all the study materials and stuff like that. But luckily, I managed and got out on the other side with some technical background from my education, and then my user perspective from personally encountering all these accessibility barriers. So, and that's also why I felt it. I mean, there were an idea about starting my own company at that time, because I could both see it from the user perspective, but I also had the technical knowledge to talk to developers about what's actually wrong in the code and what do you need to fix to make this work.
Well, so you having an interest in technology and obviously using assistive technologies made you fit in well with accessibility. But where did you start to learn more about it more broadly than just the ways that you were working with it yourself? Were there any certain resources or people that you worked with or organizations that you got involved with where you started to find out more about the broader accessibility community and the ways to make things more accessible?
When I started out, how I started, that was really by, obviously from the beginning I didn't know anything about WCAG or accessibility rules or anything about that. I obviously knew that sometimes my assistive technologies would not work as expected, and I also had some ideas about why they did not work because I didn't know about the code behind the websites. And how I started, that was more than it was, like doing WCAG assessments or anything like that. It was more taking my computer or my iPad or something at that time, bringing it out to a company and saying, hey, let me show you how your website or your web shop or your self-service solution or whatever it is, how that actually functions for a person who can't see anything. And it, right up until now, it has always been one of the things that I like the most, when I can actually get to give people, you can say, an aha moment or the eye opener that people often do get when they see someone navigating the screen reader on their own website, for example. It's still today that, in my experience, that's where that what changes. That's what makes the change for many people, where they suddenly understand, okay, this is actually very important for some people. It's not good enough what we are seeing right now. We need to change something. And so that was how I started in the beginning. And in the beginning, I tried to approach many private sector companies at that time, and the market was not anywhere near mature for that at that time, but I didn't know. But that was really, at that time, the things I was most concerned with, web shops that I couldn't use, flight companies where I couldn't book tickets, all these things that everybody needs to do on every day, pretty much every day, or often have to do. And I thought, it can only make sense for this new big online supermarket if they can also sell their stuff to blind people, but they didn't buy in at all at that time. So I learned that I need to look more at the public sector and municipalities, because they slowly started to have some awareness about accessibility around that time. So for many years, you can say I made my living for testing websites for municipalities, ministries, and stuff like that, and just a very few private organizations. But fortunately, that's changing now. I see, and I'm really happy to see that now.
Well, I'm always interested in learning how accessibility is put into place in different parts of the world. And so in your area, particularly in your country, or maybe more broadly, the European Union, do you feel like there is sufficient support to be able to, do the types of things you need to do for accessibility? And then another part of that is, do you see that there's some things that are unique to your geographical area that might be different from, for example, how things are done in the United States?
So so here in Denmark, we have the same legislation as in the rest of the EU, and that's basically, we got an EU directive back in 2018, and then it was rolled out over the years after that, and that really changed a lot. That moved all the public sector organizations, municipalities, and all these things. They really got working at that time. It did not happen the first day. It's still happening, but it's definitely much better today than it was before we got that legislation. And then now we are looking forward to what you call the European Accessibility Act, which will be from 2025. And that from that time, a lot of the private sector organizations, e-commerce and stuff like that, will also have to follow accessibility rules. And I'm really excited to see how fast they will adapt. I hope it will be faster than how it was for the public sector organizations. We do have more knowledge out in the development teams, etc., today than we had earlier on, but I'm a little bit afraid they will be very, very late to start to do the work. I mean, you don't, if you have a big e-commerce website, you just make it accessible overnight. It's a process that can take a lot of time, actually. So for many of these organizations, I think they will be very busy at some point to get out to the legislation.
Well, I always like to find out what people have in plans for the future, or how they're thinking about the future. Are there any things moving forward that you're particularly interested in? And another way to consider that? Are there things that you think the accessibility profession needs to focus on more than maybe it has in the past? You certainly have a long lived life, work life experience to draw from.
Yeah. Personally, I'm really excited about what will happen with the legislation here in EU when the private sector, more private sector companies will have to follow accessibility rules. And it's really because, if you remember, I mentioned how that was how I tried to start out when I started my company in the beginning. I wanted to be able to do my shopping in the online supermarket. For me as a blind person, it's not very easy to go shopping in the normal supermarket unless I have someone to help me. It's very useful to be able to shop online. Or if you imagine around Christmas time, I just like anyone else, I need to go out and get some Christmas gifts for my girlfriend and for my children and my family and stuff like that. And that's not very easy to do on your own as a blind person in a very crowded Christmas mall, if you can imagine that. It's much easier to be able to do that online. And I would really prefer to answer this from a personal perspective rather than the accessibility professional perspective. I'm looking so much forward to seeing the impact that this new legislation will have on the private companies, because I think that's really where it starts doing a big difference for people's lives. That's really where we have the big barriers, as I see it, for living independent and lives, and for people to participate in life and society. That's when we get these barriers down. So I'm looking very much forward to that. Also, I have an 11-year-old boy who also has a visual impairment, and obviously I'm very concerned about that he's growing up in a more accessible world today with more opportunities than I felt that I had at that time. So I mean, that's what drives me pretty much now. And but also, I want to say I'm very positive about how fast it actually moves now. I'm very positive about the technology. I'm so excited to see just all the new stuff with AI. What does that mean for both accessibility and for assistive technologies just in 1 or 2 or 5 years from now? So I'm very positive. A lot of very exciting things are happening in this area.
Well, I appreciate you giving your thoughts on those personal interests, and I do want to follow what's going on in your area with the new legislation. It'll be interesting to see how that moves forward. Lars, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I've enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a lot, and so I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I really enjoyed it as well. It was interesting talking to you. So thanks for inviting me in here.
All right, maybe we'll meet up together in the physical world at some point.
Yeah, next time you happen to visit Copenhagen, I will have a coffee ready for you.
All right, very good. Thank you.